How to tackle uncertainty in anything like business, life. It's so normal as a human to just worry about the future, mentally draining pretending. Ooh, girl. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Denais and I'm a therapist and mindset coach based in Dallas, Texas. I do videos on mental health, lifestyle, self-care. So if you love those kinds of videos, consider subscribing to the channel. Today I'm gonna answer all of your questions. I asked you guys on Instagram what questions you have about business, life, YouTube. I'm gonna answer all of them here. I have my coffee. I'm in like the Christmas spirit and we're gonna get into it. The first question is, how old are you? So I am 29 years old. I turned 29 in August. I don't know how I feel about it. I feel like I want to make the best out of my last year of my 20s. And so I've made a lot of positive changes. I feel like this year is just all about positive changes and really going into 30 as healthy as I can be and really understanding what my values are, where I stand on things. And so I feel like this last year will be a lot of, discovery. They asked me, when did you start your business? So when did I start my business? So I started my business in 2019. And I was doing it part-time because I was working a regular 9 to 5, and I was doing my part-time therapy practice on the weekends, and that's how I was able to grow my business. It definitely was challenging at the beginning because of having to work 2 jobs, but for me, it's what I wanted to do at the time. I really wanted the stability of a 9 to 5 while also having my own business and having my own autonomy to make decisions. So yeah, so when did I start my business? It was in 2019. So someone asked this question, LLC or sole proprietor? So I am not an accountant, I am not a lawyer, and so as far as this question goes, and I answered this person directly on Instagram, I really think it goes down to what your risk level is. An LLC is going to provide you liability protection. It's going to remove your personal liability. So I think it just depends. When I first started, I was just a sole proprietor because I was okay with taking that risk. I didn't think anybody was going to come at me at any time. I was just growing my business. But to be on the safe side, many people will tell you to go the LLC route right away. And I think really it's a question to ask your accountant or your lawyer about in terms of protection and in terms of tax wise. Are you gonna get, a better, tax wise, money wise, is it better to do the LLC? So that's what I would say, because like I said, I started as a sole proprietor for a while and I'm just getting to doing an LLC. Because I have multiple businesses, it's tricky to kind of separate those things. So that's kind of where I'm at and I'm still learning. But yeah, that was one of the questions. Another one of the questions is, what service do you use to send your newsletter out to your email list? Looking for a free one. So the one I use is not free. It's called Flowdesk, and I do have a video on every single item that I use on my business to help run it. But yeah, I use Flowdesk, and if you use the discount code below, you get 50% off on a monthly subscription, I believe. And it's $19 a month, but it's so worth it because one of the things that I implemented this year is I would send monthly emails to my clients to remind them to schedule an appointment, and that increased appointment retention and client retention by 80% because clients would forget, life happens. So I use that as a way to send a mass email to clients, and then I also use that to get my newsletter out, which I think is a really good one if you haven't subscribed. It's a monthly newsletter, and I also have a bi-weekly newsletter. I just feel like really investing in an email marketing platform is so important because Instagram can be gone like that, and we have seen those times where Instagram just goes dark. And so if you're relying your whole business on your followers, Instagram, you do not have any of that information, then you have nothing. You don't have anything. So I would encourage you to invest in one, but if you cannot, absolutely not, you're not ready, then MailChimp, I believe, has a free version. And if any of you who are listening to this have other options as far as for free newsletters, comment down below. But yeah, I use Flowdesk. So the next question is, currently, what is the hardest thing for you with your business and private practice? I think the hardest thing for me is that I'm not working a lot. Like, at least for me, that's how it feels like. I'm really not prioritizing my business as much as I used to, and I think that's the hardest thing for me. I'm not to the point where growing my business is the problem, or where I'm worried that I'm not gonna get business. I get those like moments, but for me right now is like I'm trying not to prioritize business as much, and so that just feels off for me because I'm an Enneagram 3, which is called the achiever, and so I'm constantly wanting to achieve. I'm always like wanting to accomplish things. So in this season right now, I am accomplishing things, but it's more on my side projects or on my personal like fitness and stuff. And so for me, I think the hardest thing is knowing that I could grow my business and scale it, but knowing that it might not be the right time for me right now, because that would mean that I would have to deprioritize myself. And I'm not ready to deprioritize myself because I've done that for so long. So I think that's the hardest thing for me right now in my business and my private practice. So the next question is, what is the biggest challenge with growing a YouTube channel while running a business? The biggest challenge is that you want to produce more, but you have to scale back. So I definitely get imposter syndrome and compare myself when I see other YouTubers who are posting twice a week, but I don't think that's sustainable for me because YouTube doesn't provide all my income. It literally just started this year where I started getting brand deals, and they're still very small like deals, right? Like very small. And I'm just starting to, I just got monetized. And so like the biggest challenge for me has been posting more. But I also saw that I gained this goal of getting monetized by starting out by just posting 2 to 3 videos a month, and that was okay. So if you're telling yourself, if somebody's telling you have to post, twice a week, like I really do think that you have to post what's going to keep you consistent. And consistency, I think we compare consistency with frequency. So consistent is showing up within the same type of quality that you can, and frequency is how frequent can't you show up, right? And so for me, my effort is more on, I rather show up with quality content consistently. That means that I can't post that week, I won't. And I detach myself of the outcome because I have no control over it. As much as I want to have control over it, I don't. So I think the biggest challenge is really understanding where your priorities are, and if your business is making you money and YouTube isn't, then being able to balance that. For me, like I prioritize my clients. Like that's just, my clients know that I prioritize them, and I also prioritize my mental health. So if that means not posting 1 week on YouTube, then that's what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to apologize for that. I see often, YouTubers apologize for, taking care of themselves, and that takes away like your autonomy of choice. Like you're here posting because you want to provide value. And I think that it comes from other people that need to show compassion about that some days you're not going to show up. So I hope that answers your question. The other question is tips for how you manage your time effectively. The way that I manage my time is I use ClickUp, which is a project management tool. There are also other different types of management tools that you could use. I also use a paper planner, and I sit with myself on Sunday for 30 minutes and I just plan my week. I do have a virtual assistant. Because I invested in someone to help me, it made this so much easier to start this project. I knew I wasn't going to start YouTube unless I had support. Now that's not for everybody. Not everybody has access to support, and I get that. But for me, that was really important. So I invested in support, I use ClickUp, I do weekly check-ins with myself for my own tasks, and then I also have a reoccurring task that tells me put tasks for my VA because I'm notorious to wanting to do it all myself because I do it better. You know, if you ever heard that, you telling yourself like, oh, I don't want to give this to someone else because I do it better. I was there and I really had to relinquish control and perfectionism, and that's how I manage my time. I also don't put a long to-do list. I do just my top 3 things that I really want to get accomplished, and that has helped me. I've done so much more because I've prioritized, but that's how I manage my time. I have to have it somewhere digitally, and then if I overwhelm myself with my digital to-do list, I make my paper to-do list more realistic. So that's how I manage my time. Oh, and I also have processes for everything. We have like a template for YouTube video, from researching the topic to posting it on YouTube. And I'll link the video process down below if you want to purchase my template. But yeah, so I have like a whole template of like what, you know, every step along my YouTube process, because it never changes, and that just makes us, my team, aware of like, what do we need, you know, what are we missing, are we missing any step? And when I say team, it's just me and my VA, so like we're a team, we work. Okay, so the next question is tips for anyone with a bachelor's, not mental health, wanting to pursue grad in mental health. Okay. Tips for anyone with a bachelor's. If you haven't already, the minute that you go to grad school, use your free therapy. Like, use your free therapy. It's very challenging. Like, graduate school is no joke. It's very challenging. I remember having my first like a major panic attack in grad school because I wanted to do it all. Like, I was part of all these organizations. So really get yourself focused on the goal. Don't try to do too much. Really network with the people in your cohort, meaning like the people that you end up going into class with. Really make connections with them, really make connections with your professors. And I'm not saying like kiss their ass, but I'm saying like to really, your professors are gonna be there to guide you, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I remember feeling awkward, like, oh, I'm the only one asking questions, I'm the only one raising my hand. But it's because of that other people got things that they needed, you know? And so as far as that, like, I think that would be some tips for pursuing that. And also think outside the traditional role of a mental health therapist, because there are so many things that you can do in the field. And I have my good friend Denais, she just posted a video here on YouTube on non-traditional roles for mental health therapists, so you definitely should check that out. I'll link her video down below. But there's so many different roles that you can do when it comes to you know, after grad school and going into grad school. But I really do recommend, like, I went straight from bachelor's to grad school because I wasn't willing to work as a mental health aide or anything like that. I wanted to not burn myself out before I'm in the field. So that's another tip for me. Like, try to look for a role as a graduate assistant. Try to look for a role maybe that's outside of what you're learning, only because you want to have that balance and you don't want to be overwhelmed. So those are my tips. Someone just put, oh man, imposter syndrome, please help. I have a whole video on imposter syndrome, so I'm gonna link it down below for you. Imposter syndrome is real. I have it, everyone has it, and it goes away with practice, and it goes away and it comes back. So every time you're leveling up, every time that you're choosing to do something that is not something you've already done before, you're going to have imposter syndrome. And also be very mindful of the people who you have imposter syndrome with, because that also gives you evidence of like, who are the people that intimidate me, who are the people that make me feel like I should question my abilities. And take note of that, because that's super important to kind of know like who is triggering me, you know? Okay, the next question is, how do you manage being visible on social platforms and having therapy clients? So how do I manage that? Again, I have support. I am very, very honest with myself as far as how much I can do. I batch like there's nobody's business. Like every time you see a video, for the most part, my monthly resets are always like current time, but every other video is always pre-recorded like the previous month. And one of the things too, if I'm posting more on YouTube, then I'm posting less on Instagram. I cannot give myself the expectation to post both times. I don't know if you've noticed, but my Instagram, I post less. I think I post twice a week on the days that I'm posting more on YouTube. And then on TikTok, I really just use that as creative. Like I don't really like have a plan or a strategy. I just post and things just go really well there. So I think like don't think about it. Like set the systems in place. I'm gonna preach systems are so great when it comes to doing this. Hire someone when you can't. And when I say hire, you don't have to hire an employee. You can hire a contractor. My VA, Kaylee, is a contractor. She owns her own virtual assistant business. She has other clients, and I basically get 15 hours from her every month. And that's 15 hours that I don't have to worry about because I do see clients. Now, I also only see clients 3 times out of the week. And I think total slots as far as like how many clients I see in a week max would be 18, which I know is a lot for some people, but that's just what I like. I've seen therapists like see 30 to 40 clients and I would not be present or be able to do everything that I'm doing. I think also price your rate as a therapist fairly for yourself, because you're not going to be able to do extra stuff if you're struggling to even make ends meet. So yeah, I think that's how I managed to stay visible. So the other question is how to tackle uncertainty in anything like business, life, and plan. How to tackle uncertainty: start tolerating it. Start tolerating uncertainty. Stop making a lot of plans all the time. Like start allowing pockets of uncertainty in your life so that you can grow the tolerance. Start realizing what's triggering you. Journal, reflect. Why does this bother me so much? Why can I let go? Those are all important things that I don't think we learn. And it's so normal as a human to just worry about the future because it's survival instinct for ourselves. But what I would say is start tolerating things. And this is like a simple exercise, like going to a frozen yogurt place and like just picking a random flavor without looking at like the label, and then just letting it be. If you don't like it, that's fine. That's like you trying to step out of your comfort zone. Let your friends plan things. Let other people take, more bigger roles in your life. I remember I used to I would like my house to be clean in a certain way. And the minute that I allowed myself just to get support and help and release my sense of control, I was able to do more, felt better. And so I think that it comes down to releasing control. It comes down to allowing yourself to be present, because the only way you can make decisions is based on your now, right? Like you can make a decision now and it can totally change in the future. Allow yourself to make a decision based on the information that you have now. And then as you get more information, you start changing your decision or your plans. A plan doesn't have to be set in stone if it doesn't serve you. I've had several plans of like what I wanted to do for my business, what I saw myself doing, and I completely changed my business so many times. And that's okay because it serves me. It doesn't serve anybody else if I'm not doing something that I love. I love this next question. So this next question is, why is it hard for Latina women to ask for help in career and home? It's mentally draining pretending. I agree. And my question to you is, why pretend, right? Like, why pretend? And I think it comes down to how we grew up and maybe belief systems that we incorporated into our now adulthood. Maybe your mom never, allowed herself rest, things, and remember that when you're changing the course of how a culture did things, it is going to raise some concerns for them because they don't understand that you're doing things differently. But I think providing yourself compassion, knowing that you need help and support in order to get ahead in life. Like, how ahead would our parents be if they allowed themselves to get support? And here's the thing, they probably did. I remember my grandma taking care of the kids while, people in the family had to work. Like, we did allow certain support. So allow yourself to have some support. Ask yourself, why is it hard for me to ask? Why is it hard for me to really be able to help? Because what if you're the one standing in the way of getting actually support? And this could be so, you know, like asking support for like getting help, you know, mentally, whether that's going to a therapist, or asking for support at home, like asking your spouse to help. If you notice that your spouse is not helping, or if you notice that your partner's not helping, what can you do? How can you communicate? It comes down to communicating, which I think, like for me at least, you know, growing up, I was never communicated what the other person needed, but how it was communicated would be like anger outbursts, frustration. And because this individual didn't know how to communicate, it came out like that. Now I understand that, because nobody taught my family how to communicate. And so now I see my family learning and starting to grow because of it. I can call it out, like, you're not communicating with me. I need to know what you need, right? Because if you don't communicate with someone, you're not going to be able to get what you need, right? And we can't anticipate people's needs. We can't anticipate someone's reaction or look at their body language. How are they feeling? That is too much work. That's what's mentally draining. So if you're doing that, like, oh my gosh, she's in a bad mood, or oh my gosh, she's in a bad mood, I can't ask for help, like, that is like walking on eggshells. And so it's part of saying like, hey, like, I noticed that you're not feeling well. Is there something that, you know, you haven't been communicating? Is there something that I can do to help? Maybe you start asking how you can help, and then in return say, you know, I would also like for you to do X. You know, I think that's the best way to start feeling a little bit less guilty about it. But it's hard because we grew up in a culture where hard work, dedication, sweat, tears is what was ingrained in us, at least as me as a Mexican woman. That's what I learned. However, I think it's because that's what they needed to do in order to survive. And now it's different. You have a chance to change things if it doesn't meet a value that you have now in life. So I hope that was helpful. We're getting to the last question. So what is the scariest part about starting your own practice? The scariest part is definitely, you know, making changes, firing people, growing your clients. Like, I don't think there's just one scary part. There's so many scary parts. But for me, I like to feel the fear and do it anyway. So, I mean, for me, the scariest part was investing. I remember investing $4,000 on a service because I was building a course, and the course didn't work out. Like, I didn't even make like the amount that I invested in it. I think I made half of it, and that wasn't worth my time. And that's okay. I just started something that I wasn't ready or that didn't understand, and now I know that that wouldn't work out for me in that particular time. So be okay with being a beginner. I think that's something I had to learn, being okay being a beginner in business, and be okay that you're going to gradually see growth. Okay. How do you keep growing your practice? Marketing tools. I keep growing my practice because I keep showing up in the capacity that I can. Keep growing my practice because I allow myself to be seen visibly. I allow myself to talk to people, to network with people. It's not a marketing tool that you need. It's you just really understanding who your audience is, you really challenging yourself for new opportunities and seeing them out. Like, for me, I will never deny a podcast request, like for me to be on someone else's podcast, unless the podcast doesn't align with my values. But I'm always visible in that way. I always like to talk to people about how they're doing in business and how I can help them, just provide value. Like, don't underestimate the value of just word of mouth and connecting with people. That's the best marketing tool that I could give you. And I like to use more of attraction marketing. So I'm not going to be on people's DMs asking, hey, do you need a therapist? Or hey, do you want coaching? Like, I'm not going to do that. If people actively seek me out, then that's when I start engaging, because I know that they want to work with me versus wasting my time and trying to attract people, right? Like or trying to like make them, you know, come into my business. And so yeah, as far as marketing tools, like, I mean, I've used Psychology Today as a directory, which is very passive now. You just have to do it once. I use my website. I think the power of a website is really important. I use Instagram, you know, TikTok, YouTube now as a marketing tool. But in terms of like planning and stuff, I use Planoly to plan out my social media. Yeah, so those are kind of all the things that I use in terms of marketing, but get yourself out there. One of the things that made me stood out as a LPC intern, because I think they called them interns at the time, as an intern therapist, was that I started my podcast and I just got connected with people and I just started networking, and I had a platform now to bring people in, and that was valuable for people. They wanted to be on the podcast, and I got to do solo episodes on things that I never said that I was an expert in anything. I just allowed myself to grow and be uncomfortable. If you're just starting, connect with people, but connect and bring value. Like, don't just say, hey, I would love to have coffee. Like, no, like really say like, what do you want? Because that's the one thing for me. Like, if you reach out to me and you're like, oh, I would love to pick your brain, I'm at the point where I'm not going to do that for free, but other people will. I think it's like being able to just give value. I don't know if anybody in any business, when somebody just like shares a post to your DMs and you're like, why did you just share this with me? I didn't ask, it was unsolicited. Don't do that. Please do not do that. Really connect with them. Like, engage with their posts, engage with their stories, you know, be curious about them in an authentic way, because I think that people can really see when you're not being authentic. Everything that I've done before is adding up to now. So know that, like, I've done so much content that I'm not worried so much about creating new content. I really do think that it comes down to figuring out what works for you. And then the final question is, how long did it take for you to build your clientele before going full-time with your business? So I started October of 2019. By March of 2020, which I don't know how many months that is, maybe 6 months, I was feeling very comfortable about already going full-time. It was a matter of my fear, and so I allowed myself to save up more. And then October of 2020, I went full-time on my business. Well, October 2020, I stopped my full-time job, and come November, I did my full-time business. So it took me some time, but it wasn't because I didn't have the clients. It was more because I was just like fearful of letting go of this like 9-to-5 paycheck. But after that, you know, it came consistently because I kept just doing everything that I was doing. So I hope that helps. But those are all the questions. Man, you guys asked some really great questions about business and just like life. If you guys want to know anything else, maybe I didn't answer a question that you've been dying to know about me, comment down below, and I'll see you guys in my next video.